Hi everyone, my name is Andrew Zamora, and today we will talk about the similarities between other cultures with psychological issues. Is the mind independent from or intertwined with cultures? According to this perspective, important culture variations and ways of thinking cannot exist because cultures merely provide variations in context and content that lie outside the operations of the underlying CPU. If cultural differences do appear in psychological studies, this universalist perspective will suggest that they must reflect the contamination of various sources of noise, such as translation errors or the differences in familiarity people have with being in psychological experiments. They could not reflect differences in the CPU because it is universally the same all across contexts. Journal psychology would argue then that virtually all human psychology is universally experienced in similar ways. Psychological universals and the level of analysis. When we consider culture and psychology, we have two contrasting views. One view is that psychological processes are essentially the same everywhere, and the other is that psychological processes emerge differently according to the cultural context. Demonstrating which view is better supported by the evidence should be straightforward because all you have to do is measure some psychological variables across a number of different cultures. For example, consider the question of marriage. Is it culturally universal? The answer depends on what we mean by marriage. On one hand, if we mean the kind of marriage that is common in Western cultures in which a man and a woman fall in love and agree to share their lives exclusively with each other until either one of them dies or they get divorced, then marriage is not universal, as there are many cultures in which people do not such relationships. Here are the types of universals. Non-universal, if we find that a particular psychological process can be said to not exist in all cultures, this reflects an absence of universality and is called, appropriately enough, a non-universal. Existential universal. If we conclude that a particular psychological process is available in all cultures, then we move up the decision tree to the next level. Now we must decide whether the process occurs in the same way across cultures. If the answer is no, it qualifies as an existential universal. Functional universal. If we conclude that a psychological process is used to solve the same problem across cultures, then we move up to the next level in the decision tree. Here, we must decide whether the process is equally accessible to people in all cultures. If the answer is no, it would just be called a functional universal. Accessibility universal. If we conclude that a psychological process is equally accessible in all cultures, it is an accessibility universal. This is the top level of the tree. The strong case for universality. It indicates that a given psychological process exists in all cultures, is used to solve the same problem across cultures, and is accessible to the same degree across cultures. The main purpose of this whole PowerPoint and what we've talked about, psychology has largely relied on narrow and unrepresentative samples, which weakens its ability to address questions about how well findings from any particular study generalize to other human samples. One key goal of cultural psychology is to collect results from a broad enough array of cultures to be able to be more confidently explore questions about human universals and human diversity. This goal is a challenge because of accessibility barriers to a wide range of cultures. For instance, most psychologists don't receive any training in other cultures, and some cultures might not have any psychologists working there who can serve as collaborators. While in the 1980s, less than 5% of articles has such themes. More recently, this number has doubled nearly 10%, which means psychology has become more international over this period of time.